Every year, hundreds of thousands of Americans pack up everything they own, load it into a truck, and leave. Not for adventure, not for opportunity, because staying stopped making sense. Cities that used to have 500,000 people and now have 200,000. Neighborhoods where every third house is dark. Schools that closed not because the year ended, but because there weren't enough kids left to fill the classrooms. People are leaving, not in a panic, not all at once, just quietly, steadily, one family at a time, like water draining out of a bathtub that nobody noticed was unplugged. And the ones who stay aren't staying because it's good, they're staying because leaving costs money they don't have, or means abandoning the only life they've ever known. These are 10 American cities that people are walking away from. The numbers are real, the reasons are ugly, and some of these cities you might recognize. You might even live near one. Because the same thing that happened to them doesn't announce itself, it just starts. Slowly, quietly, and by the time most people notice, it's already too late to get out ahead of it. If you don't want to be the last one holding the keys to a city nobody wants, subscribe. We cover exactly this every week before it hits the news. Stay until number 1. Number 10, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is the kind of place where the history is world-class, and the present is struggling not to embarrass it. Philadelphia sits on the Delaware River in southeastern Pennsylvania, 90 miles southwest of New York City. It was the first capital of the United States, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, where the Constitution was drafted. At its peak in 1950, Philadelphia had 2.07 million residents. Today, it has under 1.5 million. Over 600,000 people gone, and the number drops every year. The manufacturing base, textiles, shipbuilding, industrial production, hollowed out across the 1960s and 70s. The jobs went south, then overseas. The middle class followed to the suburbs. The tax base that remained wasn't enough to maintain a city built for twice the population. Median household income, $47,300. Poverty rate, 23%, nearly 1 in 4 residents. Violent crime rate above 1,200 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime, 1 in 84. Property crime, 1 in 25. Philadelphia also has the highest wage tax of any major American city. You pay just to work here, regardless of where you live. The people leaving are the ones the city can least afford to lose. Young professionals who grew up here, came back after college, did one more calculation. Same salary in Nashville, half the taxes, lower crime. The spreadsheet wins every time. Who stays? Generational families who've been in the same neighborhood for 40 years and wouldn't know where else to go. The elderly. The working poor who are one car repair away from not making rent, but still somehow making it work. Walk through Kensington on any afternoon. Open-air drug market. People in various stages of overdose on the sidewalk. Discarded needles in the gutter. Blocks from a school. Blocks from families just trying to get through the day. A woman who moved her family to Chester County suburbs said, paraphrased, "I didn't leave Philadelphia. I left what Philadelphia became on my street. There's a difference, and it hurts." Philadelphia still has the Liberty Bell, the cheesesteaks, the soul. What it doesn't have is enough reason for people with options to choose it over somewhere cheaper and safer. And every year, a few more of them stop choosing it. Number 9, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee is the kind of place where segregation isn't history. It's the current zip code. Milwaukee sits on the western shore of Lake Michigan in southeastern Wisconsin, 90 miles north of Chicago. It was a beer and manufacturing city. Pabst, Schlitz, Miller. Milwaukee brewed more beer per capita than anywhere in America. At its peak in 1960, Milwaukee had 741,000 residents. Today, it's under 570,000 and falling. The manufacturing left in the same Rust Belt wave. But Milwaukee carried an extra weight that made recovery harder than most. It is consistently ranked the most racially segregated major city in the United States. Not one of the most, the most. Black and white residents live in almost entirely separate geographies, attend separate schools, and experience separate economic realities within the same city limits. Median household income, $43,800. Poverty rate, 26%. And on the north side, child poverty exceeds 50%. Half of all children on the north side are growing up in poverty. Violent crime rate, 1,597 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim, 1 in 63. Property crime? 1 in 20. Why are people leaving? Remote work changed the math. When your job can be done from anywhere, Milwaukee stops competing with Chicago and starts competing with Austin and Denver. And Milwaukee is losing that competition every year. Drive through Sherman Park on a Tuesday morning. Corner stores with metal grates down even when they're open. A rec program with 40 kids and 2 staff members. Because that's what the grant covered. 4 blocks over, a house with a fresh coat of paint and a for sale sign. Priced for someone who doesn't live in Sherman Park yet. A youth counselor said, paraphrased, "The kids I work with are smart, motivated, and they all want to leave. Not because they hate Milwaukee. Because Milwaukee hasn't given them a reason to stay. Milwaukee still makes Miller Lite. It still has the Bucks and a beautiful lakefront. What it hasn't made in 60 years is a convincing argument for why the people it's losing should turn around and come back." Number 8. San Francisco, California. San Francisco is the kind of place where a teacher and a billionaire share the same street, but only one of them can afford to stay. San Francisco sits at the tip of a peninsula on the northern California coast, surrounded by water on 3 sides and by impossible rent on the 4th. It was the symbol of the American counterculture, then the symbol of the tech boom, then the symbol of what happens when a city optimizes entirely for wealth and forgets about everyone who actually runs it. Population peaked near 900,000. Between 2020 and 2025, the city lost over 60,000 residents, one of the steepest drops of any major American city in that period. The reason isn't crime, though crime is real. The reason is math. Median rent for a 1-bedroom apartment, $2,900 per month. Median household income, $136,000, which sounds high until you realize teachers earn $70,000, nurses earn $85,000, and firefighters earn $95,000. These are the people who keep a city functioning. None of them can comfortably afford to live in the city they serve. Poverty rate, 11%, low by national standards, but concentrated and brutal. Tent cities on Market Street, open drug use in the Tenderloin. A Walgreens closed its flagship downtown location, citing $200,000 in annual theft losses. Who's leaving? The middle. The teachers, the young families, the small business owners who did the math and moved to Sacramento, Austin, or Phoenix. Who's staying? The very rich who can afford it, and the very poor who have nowhere else to go. An elementary school teacher who relocated to Sacramento told a Bay Area newspaper, paraphrased, "I loved San Francisco. I loved my kids, my school, my neighborhood. But I was spending 58% of my take-home pay on rent. At some point, love doesn't pay the electricity bill." San Francisco still has the Golden Gate, the fog, the energy of a city that once changed the world. What it's running out of is the middle class that made it a city rather than just a skyline. Number 7. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland is the kind of place where young people grow up, get educated, and leave. Like the city is a launch pad for everywhere else. Cleveland sits on the southern shore of Lake Erie in northeast Ohio, a city that was once one of the 5 largest in the United States and is now fighting to stay relevant. At its peak in 1950, Cleveland had 914,000 residents. Today it has under 360,000. That's a 60% collapse over 70 years, and it hasn't stopped. The city lost another 14.5% of its population in the last decade alone. The steel mills and manufacturing plants that built Cleveland are gone. The Cuyahoga River, the one that caught fire in 1969 because it was so polluted with industrial waste, became a national joke. The joke faded. The economic damage didn't. Median household income, $32,400. Poverty rate, 30%. Nearly 1 in 3 residents. Violent crime rate, 1,557 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime? 1 in 64. Vacancy rate for housing, over 15%. Entire streets where half the houses are empty. Why do people leave? Because there's nowhere to climb. The job market that once absorbed working class graduates dried up. The employers who replaced manufacturing, healthcare, education, service industries, pay less and offer less stability. Young people leave for Columbus, Pittsburgh, or further south, and they don't come back. Drive through Huff or Glenville on a weekday. Corner stores that close at 7 p.m. A barber shop that's been on the same corner for 30 years. The last business standing on a block that used to have 12. The owner told a local paper, paraphrased, "My customers are dying or moving. And the young ones, I don't see them anymore." Cleveland still has the Cavaliers, the Browns, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a genuinely beautiful lakefront that most people outside Ohio don't know exists. What it doesn't have is enough economic gravity to keep the people it raises. It grows them, then it loses them. Then it wonders why it keeps shrinking. Number 6, Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown is the kind of place where the collapse has been going on so long that residents have started to mistake it for normal. Youngstown sits in northeast Ohio, halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, in a valley that was once the beating heart of American steel production. The city had 170,000 people in 1930. Today, it has under 60,000. That's a 65% collapse, and it's still going. Youngstown loses people every single year without exception. On September 19, 1977, Youngstown Sheet and Tube announced it was closing its Campbell Works facility. 5,000 jobs gone in one press release. The date became known locally as Black Monday, and Black Monday didn't end. It just repeated in slower motion for the next 4 decades. Median household income, $29,800, one of the lowest of any city its size in America. Poverty rate, 38.5%. Violent crime rate, 1,633 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim, 1 in 61. Vacancy rate for housing, over 25%. 1 in 4 homes in Youngstown is sitting empty. Why are people leaving? Because the jobs never came back. Because every decade another anchor employer closes or downsizes. Because young people look at the numbers, look at the opportunities, and choose somewhere else. In the 2000s, Youngstown became the first American city to officially plan for shrinkage, to acknowledge the population was gone and restructure services around the actual population rather than the ghost of the old one. It was honest. It was innovative. It also broke something psychological in the people who stayed. A resident quoted in a community survey said it plainly: "When your city's plan is to get smaller, you don't feel like a citizen. You feel like a loose end." There's a stretch on the south side where a Dollar General opened, got robbed 6 times in 18 months, and now keeps security gates up until 10 a.m. even though the sign says 8. The manager told a local paper, "We're here because people need us, but we're leaving if it gets worse." It got worse. They're still there. For now. When a city's biggest retail win is a Dollar General that hasn't left yet, that's not a comeback story. That's a city running on borrowed time and low expectations. Number 5. Flint, Michigan. Flint is the kind of place where the government poisoned the water and then spent years arguing about whether it counted as poisoning. Flint sits in the middle of Michigan, an hour north of Detroit, in a city that was once synonymous with American automotive power. General Motors built Flint. At its peak in the 1960s, GM employed over 80,000 workers in Flint alone. The city had 200,000 residents. Today, it has under 80,000. That's a 60% collapse, accelerated dramatically by the water crisis that began in 2014. In April 2014, city officials switched Flint's water supply to the Flint River to save money. The water was corrosive. It leached lead from aging pipes directly into the tap water of every home in the city. Children drank it, bathed in it, brushed their teeth with it. Lead poisoning in children causes irreversible neurological damage. There is no cure. There is no undoing it. Median household income, $30,200. Poverty rate, 39%. The highest of any city its size in Michigan. Violent crime rate, 1,987 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim, 1 in 50. Property crime, 1 in 17. Why did people leave? Because they were scared for their children's health. Between 2010 and 2020, Flint lost 18.7% of its population. Families who had the means packed up and moved. Those who stayed were either too poor to go or too attached to leave. And many of them are still living with filters on their taps because the trust never came back, even after the pipes were partially replaced. A mother who left Flint for Grand Rapids told a Michigan radio reporter, paraphrased, "I didn't leave because of the crime or the jobs or any of the usual stuff. I left because I was giving my kid poisoned water and the people responsible were on television saying it was fine. The pipes have been partially replaced. The lawsuits have been settled. The officials who made the decisions got reduced sentences or walked free. And Flint is still losing people. Because once a city poisons its children, no press release fixes what that does to a community's trust. Number 4, Gary, Indiana. Gary is the kind of place where a corporation built the city, and when the corporation left, nobody told the city it was allowed to stop existing. Gary sits just south of Chicago, 25 miles from the Magnificent Mile, and about 70 years of economic distance away. U.S. Steel constructed Gary from scratch in 1906. Not discovered, not settled, built, because a corporation needed somewhere to put its workers. Peak population, 178,000 in 1960. Today, under 68,000. A 62% collapse. Gary has fewer residents now than it did in 1920, before the boom, before the steel, before any of it. When U.S. Steel automated, downsized, and eventually pulled out of Gary, the city found out what happens when your entire reason for existing is someone else's business decision. The jobs didn't relocate, they disappeared. Median household income, $31,400. Poverty rate, 35%. Violent crime rate, 2,239 per 100,000, 5 times the national average. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime, 1 in 45. Property crime, 1 in 18. Gary has an estimated 10,000 abandoned structures within city limits. Entire blocks where every single house is empty. Streets with working streetlights and no one to light the way for. The city has been demolishing them when it has the budget, which is not often. A longtime Gary resident at a city council meeting paraphrased, "I've watched every business on my block close. The laundromat, the pharmacy, the barbershop. Now it's just us and whoever's moving product at night." Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. His childhood home on Jackson Street became a tourist attraction, surrounded for years by vacant lots and crumbling houses. The most famous address in the city, and the block looked like the rest of Gary had already given up on it. When a city can't maintain the block around its most famous landmark, that's not decline. That's a city so far gone, it doesn't notice anymore. Number 3. Stockton, California. Stockton is the kind of place where the city went broke, emerged from bankruptcy, declared a comeback, and then kept losing people anyway. Stockton sits in California's Central Valley, 80 miles east of San Francisco, in the middle of some of the most fertile agricultural land on Earth. It was a port city, an agricultural hub, a working-class anchor in a valley that fed the country. Population grew fast in the 2000s, fueled by cheap housing, easy credit, and people priced out of the Bay Area looking for something they could afford. Then 2008 hit. Foreclosures gutted entire neighborhoods. Home values collapsed 70%. In 2012, Stockton became the largest U.S. city to file for municipal bankruptcy at that time. Median household income, $52,400. Poverty rate, 22%. Violent crime rate, 1,415 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim, 1 in 71. Gang-related homicides account for 68% of all murders. In 2024, the city recorded over 270 gun violence incidents. Why are people leaving? Because the bankruptcy hollowed out city services that never fully recovered. Police staffing remains below pre-2008 levels. Response times in some districts stretch past 20 minutes. The schools that were supposed to attract the families who moved here from the Bay Area underperformed and kept underperforming. A former Stockton resident who relocated to Sacramento told a local news blog paraphrased, "We moved to Stockton because we thought we were being smart, getting space, getting value. Then our neighbor's car got stolen twice in a month. Then the school we enrolled our kid in got rated in the bottom 10% of the state. Then we did the math again." Stockton launched a universal basic income pilot program in 2019, gave residents $500 a month, no strings attached, and it worked well enough to inspire similar programs nationally. The city is genuinely trying. It's just trying in a place where the structural damage from 2008 still hasn't healed, and the people who have options are still doing the math. Number 2, Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson is the kind of place where being the capital of your state means almost nothing when your state doesn't want to pay for you. Jackson sits in the middle of Mississippi, a city of about 150,000 but has been losing people for decades and accelerating. It was a mid-century southern city that grew on government employment, retail, and regional commerce. At its peak in 1980, Jackson had nearly 200,000 residents. Today it has around 150,000 and lost another 2,036 in a single year recently, a 1.4% drop that shows no sign of reversing. The water system failed catastrophically in 2022. After extreme winter weather, Jackson's aging treatment plant collapsed, leaving 180,000 people without running water for weeks. Some went months with water too contaminated to drink. The failure wasn't a surprise. Engineers had been warning about the infrastructure for years. The money to fix it never came. Median household income, $38,200. Poverty rate, 25%. 85%. Violent crime rate, 1,788 per 100,000. Your chance of being a victim, 1 in 56. The city's murder rate consistently ranks among the highest per capita in the United States. Why are people leaving? Because basic services don't work. Roads with potholes that swallow tires, streetlights that stay broken for months, a water system that requires residents to keep bottled water at home as a permanent backup. When a state capital can't provide running water to its residents, people who can leave, leave. A Jackson resident quoted in a Mississippi Today investigation, paraphrased, "I pay taxes, I vote, I show up, and I can't drink the water out of my own tap. At what point am I obligated to stay?" Jackson is 83% black in a state legislature that is majority white and has historically underfunded the city. The water crisis wasn't just an infrastructure failure. It was the visible result of decades of political decisions about whose city deserves investment. Number 1. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is the kind of place that survived everything. Yellow fever, hurricanes, floods, poverty, corruption, and somehow kept going, until it started losing the people who made going worth it. New Orleans sits at the mouth of the Mississippi River in southeastern Louisiana, a city below sea level that has always known it was living on borrowed time and borrowed land. Hurricane Katrina hit on August 29, 2005. 1,800 people died. 80% of the city flooded. 1.5 million people were displaced across the South. Of those, only 61% ever came back. The ones who didn't return weren't abandoning New Orleans. They built new lives in Houston, Atlanta, and Baton Rouge, and discovered those lives were more stable, more affordable, and less likely to be underwater. Population before Katrina, 485,000. Population today, under 360,000, and still falling. Between 2020 and 2024, New Orleans lost 39,000 residents. That's not post-Katrina displacement anymore. That's a new, ongoing exodus driven by different reasons. Median household income, $42,100. Poverty rate, 24%. Violent crime rate, 2,180 per 100,000. The second highest of any major American city. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime, 1 in 46. Murder rate, 52 per 100,000. More than 10 times the national average. But crime isn't the only reason people leave. Homeowners insurance in Louisiana has become nearly unaffordable after a string of hurricanes. Insurers are pulling out of the state entirely. Infrastructure that was rebuilt after Katrina is deteriorating again. Trash collection fails. Streetlights go dark. Streets flood in normal rainstorms because the drainage system can't keep up. Locals describe a city of two realities. The French Quarter, Bourbon Street, the Jazz Fest, the food, the version that gets photographed and celebrated. And the Ninth Ward, Central City, Gentilly, neighborhoods where the recovery never fully arrived and the next storm is always one season away. A man who left New Orleans for Atlanta told the Daily Mail, paraphrased, "I love New Orleans more than any place on earth. The food, the music, the people. But I got tired of being afraid. Tired of the trash. Tired of watching the city I love slowly stop caring about itself." New Orleans is irreplaceable. There is no other city like it on earth. The culture, the music, the food. It belongs to America in a way that nothing else does. And it is losing the people who carry that culture, one family at a time, to cities that can keep the lights on and the water out. When the most unique city in America can't convince its own people to stay, that's not a weather problem. That's not a crime problem. That's a city running out of the one thing no culture can survive without: people who believe it has a future. These cities didn't die overnight. They faded slowly while most people were looking the other way. That's exactly how it works. Quietly, unnoticed. And then it's too late to go out first. Subscribe, not just to watch, but to know in advance. The next video is already ready. And if you don't want to be the last one holding the keys to a place that no one needs, you know what to do. Mr. Cold, until next time.